Okay, thank you. Okay, so I will call this August 18th Committee of the Whole meeting to order, and I'd like to acknowledge that we are on the unceded lands of the Mi'kmaq. We have a record of attendance. Everyone's here. No absent with regrets. Declarations of conflict of interest, anyone? Can declare at the time of the agenda item. Any additions or deletions? Well, approval of the agenda as it is. Councillor Dares, second by Councillor Lesser. All those in favor? Aye. Contrary? Motion carried. Now we have a presentation by one of our very favorite people, who's giggling back there, Chuck Smith. We're so glad that you're with us today. Come right up to the microphone and...
It's nice that I know a lot of people here.
Yes.
So that's a good thing. Yeah, cuts down the nerves a little bit. Yeah. And I just thought when I was coming in, my father was at town council all the time. He was back in the day when your grandfather was mayor and he was fighting for water and sewer and to come up to Southeast Street. So,
and you got it.
So we're gone full circle. I'm not as far as him, but so I want to thank you guys very much for having me to your meeting. This is something, this monument, this number 2 construction monument is something that's very important to me. And it's personal. There's some personal things involved in this that really make it really something that's quite serious for me. And I will say this, that I had the idea of this monument because I am a bit of a historian, but I like military history. And when I went to university, of course, sports, physical education, recreation, but and I was always liked history in school, but I found military history, and I ran to class.
Wow.
And I couldn't believe it, like the professors. You know, somebody that's involved in sports and basketball and that, but I was in the Army Cadets from the time I was in grade 7 to grade 12, and almost went into the military. Oh, it was close. But the appeal of going to Acadia and playing basketball and getting recruited overcome that whole idea of going into the military, and I wanted to go into officers program. And I didn't realize at that time I would have been breaking pretty hollow ground. You know, my cousin, Clarence Bowden, went into the RCMP.
Clarence is your cousin?
Yeah. So me, Clarence, and Bruce, we're all cousins.
Okay.
Yeah. So I remember when he was on the coach saying, "I'm going to the RCMP." I said, "Man, he's." Back in those days, you're talking 1968.
Yeah.
I said, he's probably not, and lo and behold, he made it.
And he did well.
Yeah, so he did very well, and that was. So I went the other route, went into Acadia and graduated with physical education and recreation. But I was always I minored in history. So now that I'm retired from the public service, never got that job as a teacher in physical education, but everybody has a different path, and God points you in certain directions. But I was able to get, I was able to have a good career in public service, and now I can do some things. I think I was talking to Gil. I can do some things that I like doing, and this is one of those things. The history, and nothing like your own history, and nothing like, and so this is military. This is and the history of this well-kept secret, the number 2 construction company, which people either heard about or haven't heard or vaguely hear about it, but this is something that was a secret to me. When I was coming up, never heard about it. It was a big secret, we never. And so it's something that I really want to move forward. And I will say this, I had the idea, but it was farther driven home to me by Andre Boudreau. So Andre Boudreau called me and said, Chuck, what do you think about a monument for the Black Battalion, the No. 2 Construction Company? Well, I knew a lot about that by when he called me. And I had the idea, but it takes somebody maybe else from the community sometime to get you stimulated. And he called me. He was I think he's a retired engineer, 35 years in the Army. So he gave me the idea. He was trying to find somebody in the Black community to move it forward. I said, you got the right guy. because I had it back in my mind. I knew the story. I had been sort of studying it, doing genealogy. And the other important fact, which I said is personal, my grandfather was in that unit. And Reverend Charles Nathan Smith, because that's where the Charles comes from. He was in that unit, and so that really personalized it for me. And there was a book about the unit that was written by Calvin Ruck. Calvin Ruck traveled to the community, and the Nova Scotia community, interviewing a lot of these gentlemen that had been in that No. 2 construction. And he was in Yarmouth. And my dad was involved with him. I have a signed copy of the book that he had. And he interviewed my grandfather. So it was all a good fit. So here we are, and I'm requesting, and I'll read a little bit of the history of the No. 2 construction for people that maybe don't know about the unit or have a little bit of vague idea about it. I'll just go through that. I got to put on these finally. And I'm just going to start. We, the African Nova Scotia community of Yarmouth Town and County, would like to have a monument erected to honor the soldiers of the No. 2 Construction Battalion who were from Yarmouth and from Yarmouth County. These soldiers served in this battalion during World War I and were citizens of the town of Yarmouth. We would also like to erect a commemorative plaque and have a banquet to honor these men. These were Black men who were willing to fight for their country, but were rejected. And some were told that this was a white man's war. When I heard that, to be honest with you, I couldn't believe that you, as a Black man, could not fight for your country, willing to give up your life, which really was, I think when I found that out, I was out of university, and it just was incredible. While others were told that their service were not required. It was a reflection of racism in Canada at that time. And certainly things have improved, thank God. But there was racism, and was very entrenched at that time in the history of our country. These rejections were unacceptable to the leaders of the community across Canada, so they wrote the militia headquarters and the Governor General requesting that the black Canadians be allowed to enlist. So the Chief of General Staff, so they still didn't give in to them enlisting, because there were soldiers that said they wouldn't fight alongside of Black men, which is, again, something that was just a sign of the racism that was going on at that time. So the Governor General came up with the Chief of Staff. The Chief of Staff at military headquarters came up with a solution, and that was the formation of a labor battalion. So what a labor battalion means, that they would cut logs, build bridges, lay the barbed wire, dig the trenches, and but they wouldn't be allowed to fight. But they would do this, which is really, really, when you think about it, a pretty important part of the war effort. The number 2 Construction Battalion was authorized on the 5th of July, 1916, under the command of Lieutenant Colonel Daniel Sutherland. The headquarters was based in Pictou, but was moved to Truro. So one of the things that got me thinking about this was when I started looking in the book, I identified 16 members from Yarmouth that were part of this unit. I thought, gee, that's pretty good. 16 members, and so I was something to be proud of, because when you look at something like this, you always look for do we have any community members? Well, I knew my grandfather, but there were 16 other members that were from this in this unit. There was one white member. So all of the officers in this unit were white, except for one. And one of the officers in this unit was Lieutenant Samuel Clifford Hood, which I think would be Cliff Hood, it would be your grandfather. And again, that was something that made me proud to see that we had that. And I think that's a high number. And I haven't counted the number in the other towns, but I think it's something that we need to honor. So there, I figured a monument would be ideal. One of the only commissioned black officer in that unit was a gentleman by the name of Captain Reverend W.A. White, who was the chaplain of the battalion and the only black commissioned officer in the British forces during World War I. And if you want to, do you remember Sing Along Jubilee and Lauren White? That's Lauren White's grandfather. And the doctor in that unit was, I think it was Captain Murray. Anne Murray, I think that's Anne Murray's grandfather. So it's interesting. So Lauren White and Anne Murray were both on Sing Along Jubilee together. They sang together, but they didn't know this story, because this story has been a well-hidden story. It hasn't been told. So I feel a monument would be appropriate for this town. I was to the apology. The government gave an apology on July the 8th in Truro, and there was 2,500 people there. It was really, really a moving time for all that attended, particularly for people from the black community. And Pierre Elliott Trudeau, he spoke very well, extremely well. And the Minister of Defense, she was on board, so it was really, really quite a great time. And Truro is going to, where that particular field was where the battalion, 106 years ago, where the battalion formed. And there's a big picture there and I don't have that picture where the whole battalion was formed there. And so it was amazing for me to stand there and think that Granddad was there in that unit 106 years ago and in that field. So it was very, very moving and a really good time. And what Truro's going to do, they're making a recreation center, and they're going to call it the number 2 construction, which is, I think, very appropriate. So I've been working with Andre, maybe we got ahead of the game, but I've been working with Andre Vaudreuil, Todd Muse, and Charles Crosby and myself. We formed a little committee, all military men, and we are looking at where the monument should be, what it should look like. And so I was charged with going out and I talked to Sweeney's Funeral Home. So if you see the monument there, they helped design that. It wasn't me, it was Charles. He was very on board. Charles McIsaac, and they went and basically donated their time to go and do this design. We designed it off of the Korean model, and when that came back, it was around 40,000. I thought that's a little bit heavy, so we cut it down, and that's what we arrived with. So what we propose to do is basically put the names in the black area right there, and then some writing in there. So I've looked for some partners. So the veterans, it's the Community War Memorial Fund application. It's a federal fund, and they have $25,000 available for this type of thing, for new monuments. So we're in the process of filling an application to apply for that. But we need letters of support, and we're going to need other funding from other community partners. So I'm in the process of doing that. We thought that it would be good to have an organization from the Black community as our sponsor. So I'm on the board of the Community Hall Association, the Greenville Community Hall Association, and we'll move this forward and become the sponsor. So I thought that was an important thing to do. And so we're looking for other partners. Also, the African Nova Scotian Affairs, I've been talking to Troy Lawrence. He's the rep in this area, the program officer in this area for that. And there's possibility to get money from that source too. So if we get partners involved, then that will help cut down the cost. I figure the total cost probably would be 35, you know, and that's just a guesstimate because we're still working on the details. Also went to the zone meeting with the Legion. Of course, Andre Budgel is arranged that, and looking for the Legion for letters of support from the Legion, and also from some potential fundings. So that's still coming forward. And Quality Concrete is willing to donate the concrete. So where we're looking to put this, that's what I say, we might have got the cart before the horse, but we're looking at right there on where the monument is, sort of run it off towards the Grand Hotel. In a curve there. We figure centrally located. If you locate it somewhere on a side street, it's not going to get the visibility. We want it so it's facing Main Street so people can see. And I think it's a just reward for these Black individuals 100+ years ago that were in my mind were heroes. The names, a lot of the names that I can remember my father talking about. My grandfather never talked much about it, but he told Dad one thing. Make sure when you go on Shirley, because Dad was in the Second World War, that you go to Paris. So I don't know what that was all about, but I have an idea. So it was nice that they got Shirley and Pierce. I'll just run through some of the names. So the names, there's I had a total of 17. And I added the gentleman by the name of Roy Fells, and I feel he deserves to be on there. He was in World War I, and he was in World War II, and he's a bit of a war hero for the Black community around here. He got into the military without having to go to number one construction, the number two construction company. So there were some that did get in. And actually, my wife's father was in the First World War, and he didn't get in this unit. We thought he was, but anybody that's in this unit, they have the regimental number starting with 93. If you're in the military, you know your regimental number. You know why? Because you don't get paid. So, so when you go up, you have to salute, and you'll have to quote your military number, and then they'll pay you. And I know that because it was the same for the Army Cadets. And I was in Aldershot there with the Army Cadets back in 1964. Okay. So here's some of the names. Freeman Beery, Gordon Beery, John Brown, Bowman Crawford, Percy Foreman Fenton, would be related to Mr. Beery, Chester Parnell, and Chester died over there, and he's still buried over there. His name is on that monument. So he died of some type of ailment that he had over there, and he's still over there. Arthur Stevens, John Stevens, Leslie Stevens, Austin Wilson, James Wilson, Percy Berryman. Percy Berryman died over there, and his name is on that monument. And John Clarence Johnson, that's Bruce's grandfather. Roy Fells and Samuel Clifford Hood. I saved the best for last. So that is my let me see, I don't want to miss anything because I tend to do that. I covered everything. Again, I want to thank you very much. And I want to personally thank Andre Boudreau for bringing this forward. And also Todd Muse, because Todd was a military guy, which I found out when I'm dealing with him. And he's very, very supportive and very, very keen. So that helped motivate me, helped me get going on this. And again, Charles Crosby, he used to go to every reunion that they had in Pictou until COVID. And he kept trying to get me to go, but I always had something going on and that kind of thing. And I think back in the day, it didn't mean as much to me, but as time goes along, you have more priorities and things like that. And for me, this is something that it might be my last hurrah. You never know. Okay. So I appreciate very much the town council taking the time out of their busy schedule to listen to my presentation, and I'm hoping that they'll consider moving this forward with letters of support and maybe potential funding. So again, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Yeah,
okay, that was great.
Thank you.
That was great, and it's not our time, it's yours. We really appreciate that you could come in. So I just jotted down some notes. Mr. Acadia grad. So we got a bunch. We got a couple of us here. Yeah. And I'm a political science major, but I had a history minor. Right. And when I had to go to class and I realized it was military, I ran the other way. So good on you, because I thought it was good. I'm going to go in there and I'm going to memorize some facts and some dates in the war, and I'm going to ace this. And no, they wanted to know why this guy went this route and that. I'm out.
I always say that, when you find your passion, like
you do.
I mean, I took like the prime ministers from I didn't remember much of that. Yeah. From McDonald right to the end. Oh, that was boring. Yeah. But military history, whoa. Yes. And I can still remember like we were in the Civil War, we got into the Napoleon War and all that. So it's fine for kids and for young people. Finding their passion is really important.
It is. And the Army Cadets thing, I'll say this. I'm just going to say the things about what I had written down. I spend a lot of time out there too with their different events that I get invited to. Yeah. And I always say it should be mandatory. Kids should have to, even if it's just for 1 year, it just, you become leaders, you become humble, you become all those things that good humans should become. So
I agree with that.
Yeah, I absolutely love that program. I was kind of giggling to myself too when you said, if you haven't heard about the No. 2 Construction Battalion, because if you know Cliff Hood at all, our Cliff, her brother, it's right, Steve? Like he just, anytime he had a chance to talk about the 2nd Battalion, he talked about it. Wow. And with passion and excitement. So
that's nice.
You might want to give him a call too, because he just I got goosebumps on my goosebumps.
Yeah.
He's really passionate about that, and he's
Yeah.
taught us a lot, and the value and the stories and
Yeah.
and things like that. So anyway, and I'm just going to ask you this because I don't know. I know Mom did that whole the whole Black history. Was that the 2nd Battalion, the Army one she did, or was it just like the Army?
I think it was just the Army.
Yeah.
It
'Cause there
wasn't
was-
the 2nd Battalion. I think it was just the Army.
I remember all the Army stuff in it. And I said, I wonder
my
if that's...
dad was really, really passionate about the armed forces. He was in the Second World War.
Yeah.
And he was he was supposed to be in the West Novies,
Yeah.
but he got in the North Novies by mistake. So
Yeah.
he wore a kilt and the whole works. And I still have his
awesome.
tan, but boy, I'll tell you, he was so proud of that.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, and he never got to go to the reunion that they were going to have there because he passed quite young But boy, and I was saying to Jeff, I heard the war stories. He was one that wasn't afraid to talk about. So I heard lots of war stories.
Some were afraid to talk about it.
Yeah,
Some didn't talk about it.
He was one of those that talked about it.
Yeah, and I don't think you're putting the cart before the horse. It's good to line everything up. I don't know what the logistics of that space over there is. I have no idea, but it's our war memorial. So I can't imagine that there would be a more appropriate place for people to come see something like this than at our war memorial.
Yeah, that's what we thought. So
The Korean one's out here. I'm not sure why, but
it's not a bad spot.
it's a good spot. It's busy, but it's you know. So we really appreciate. Any questions for Mr. Smith? Or that was excellent. Go ahead there, Deputy.
I guess the personal connection for me is really great. I don't know if anyone remembers, but a few years ago, a medal from Percy Fenton was purchased. Well, actually, it went on eBay, and actually, the buyer of it actually bought it and donated it back to the Black Cultural Center.
Yeah.
So, and Calvin Ruck, who I always called Uncle Calvin, used to vacation at my grandmother's house in the summer on Argyle Street. So he later went on to be a senator and as well as write the book. So that connection there is kind of cool as well. And just being here, and I have met with Chuck as well before, and just having the conversations. And I know this is a supportive council when it comes to anything to do with diversity or culture. And I personally like to make the motion that we write a letter of support for Mr. Smith with maybe consideration of financial support down the road.
Appreciate that. Yeah, a little bit about Calvin Ruck. His son was there, Doug. He's a lawyer and very, very excellent, passionate speaker. So they made him an honorary colonel in the Fusiliers. So I thought that was pretty neat. So.
Any discussion on that motion? All those in favor? Oh, aye. Did you put your hand up for a question? Okay. Opposed? Look at that. That's unanimous.
Thank you very much.
So maybe you keep in contact with us when you need that letter.
Yes.
What kind of stuff you would want in it.
Yeah.
And when you get down to finances, then we'll have that chat then, because I don't think you know what that is.
Yeah,
And we don't either, but.
Not quite, no.
Yeah.
No.
But you just.
I'm hoping we get the 25,000, the whole amount would be nice.
That'd be great.
Yeah, and I think the letters of support should help that. Yeah, so.
Oh, absolutely.
Anyway, thank you
Good
very
stuff.
much.
Thank you.
Okay, appreciate it.
All righty. CAO report. Any questions for our CAO? Fire department, and the chief is here. Anything for the fire department? Operational services. Chad's here. Was there anything there? Boy, summer, we gotta stop having summer meetings. Planning and economic development, anything there? Go ahead there, Councillor Bell.
I just wanted to thank you, Your Worship. I just wanted to thank Natalie for breaking down the development figures even further I just want to thank you for breaking down the development figures even more in this month's report. It really does help to sort of see where we are and what the environment looks like and how it relates to where we were last year. So I guess last year was kind of a busy year. Everybody had lots of time on their hands. Anyway, thanks very much.
You're welcome.
Anything else for Natalie? Okay, engineering, Demario's here. Anything for Demario? By the same token, folks, if there's anything you need to share with us, by all means, come up. But please don't all rush to the microphone at once. Go ahead there, Deputy.
I just wanted to say great work on the Haley Road. A lot of great feedback from that, from the residents around, and just be able to connect to Argyle Street and whatnot. It looks really great when you drive by there, so kudos to you and your team. Great job on that one.
Thank you.
Okay. Yarmouth Recreation. Is Frank here? No? Okay. Well, we can ask. Okay, go ahead there, Deputy.
Just like to say our community over the last couple of weeks has held some ball tournaments for charity events, and the J Strong tournament was almost $18,000. The tournament for Josh Atkins was almost $14,000. There was a tournament for Josie Taylor, a young lady who has cancer, and that was almost $9,000. And just to think that our community can come together when it comes to sports and put that kind of money up with no tax receipts and no anything, but just good giving from our heart. I think it speaks very good to our community. And I know Frank and the crew there, especially a lot of the students, they were there mowing the fields, doing the lines, keeping things looking good. So that was very much appreciated. And just a shout out to the crew and also our recreation community, our ball community, for stepping up and doing those things for those people in our community.
Good stuff. Anyone else, anything? Okay. All right, down to business. Building code bylaw amendment, and the recommended motion there is to recommend that council approve first reading to amend the building code bylaw. Moved by the Deputy Mayor, second by Councillor Lesser. Is there any discussion there? Any questions for Jeff? Or okay. All those in favor? Aye. Contrary? Motion carried. Nova Scotia Building Code Bylaw Enforcement Policy Amendment, and the recommended motion there is to recommend that council amend the Nova Scotia Building Code Bylaw Enforcement Policy. These were mostly housekeeping when I read, yeah. So, okay, Councillor Hatfield, second by the other Councillor Hatfield. Okay, any discussion on this one? All those in favor? Aye. Contrary? Motion carried. Art exhibitions and municipal spaces policy, to recommend that council accept staff recommendation to defer activation of the art exhibitions and municipal spaces policy for 6 months. Did you want to go ahead, CAO?
Yes, we've had this policy on the books for a little while, and we hadn't acted on it, frankly, because of COVID. Kind of threw things sideways in terms of turning council chambers or town hall into a place to exhibit art. And it wasn't on our radar until we had a recent request, and then we said, oh, well, we have this policy, and we didn't feel comfortable with recommending. I don't think the artist was ready or prepared to go through the process that's required. So we thought, let's bring forward a formal recommendation that we defer that policy for 6 months and try to get more clear of COVID, get this room back together the way it's intended to be, and then maybe we're more comfortable with having general public come in to view art that might be displayed here.
Good. So, what's that? Yeah, oh, we didn't make the motion? Okay, Councillor Hatfield, second by the other Councillor Hatfield. All those in favor? Aye. Contrary? Motion carried. And then we have Meadowfields Community School Program. There was nothing attached, but we said we were going to put this back on. Go ahead, Councillor.
Yeah, so based on the presentation that was given to us a few weeks ago, I would like to make a motion, and I would like to speak to it at some length with your indulgence. I'd like to make a motion that we fund the Meadowfield School Community School Playground to the tune of 1/3 of the estimated costs. And I'd like the opportunity to explain why and how and where the money would come from.
Okay. So
To begin with,
hang on, I just
Oh,
need
you
a
need a
seconder.
seconder, yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Thank you.
Deputy, go ahead.
so to begin with, there's over 400 students that attend Meadowfields Community School. It serves both the town of Yarmouth and the municipality of Yarmouth. It's used daily throughout the summer and weekends, throughout the year. Through the summer, the recreation department holds their day camps there. And I don't think I can overstate the value of playgrounds to encourage a healthy, active lifestyle. And I think it's a municipal responsibility to provide those such venues. It's been a proven stress reducer in post-COVID times for kids to be outdoors and having physical activity. And I can tell you that throughout my career, I was involved in youth programs with the RCMP, and I can attest to the value of recreation and the facilities that provide that. So Lori McClay was here to talk about the estimated cost and pegged it at around $300,000. We know from that day that the Department of Education does not fund playgrounds at schools, and they've already been turned down for one provincial grant application. They're not going to achieve this through bake sales. It's not realistic, I don't believe, to compare this to the Splash Park, which was very successful in fundraising. There's revenue sources that were available to them, including municipal funds that were available to the Splash Park, will not be available to the playground. It's not going to get built overnight, and they've already gone a full school year without a playground. It's almost an embarrassment to see chains and yellow tape preventing kids from accessing the playgrounds. And if they don't start construction now, they'll never have it completed before 2023. Some of the key factors that I found interesting were the fact that they involved youth in the design, and the things such as safety, accessibility, and inclusiveness were all considered. In fact, if you look at their vision, they'll have an accessible, safe, and inclusive playground for school and community use that reflects our community, culture, and heritage by September 2023, which is a really optimistic, I think, and aggressive time schedule. So it fits well with our stated priorities as the town. And one of the things I think that we should also remember is that once we invest in this playground, there's no ongoing operational costing to the town. The school looks after the playground. So unlike the Splash Park, which will have operating costs over time, there will be no further investment. So the basis for my donation is that it amounts to 1/3 of the overall costs. And I'm hoping that we could encourage our sister municipality, the municipality of Yarmouth, to match those funds. We have, as in conversation with the CAO, we have an open spaces account which has approximately $129,000. It makes no sense to me to have dedicated funds in the bank when there's an urgent need in the community. I'm going to go off track a little bit here because prior to the Paint the Park initiative down the south end, the deputy mayor and I visited toward the facility with Todd Muse, and we identified a number of issues. Demolition of the old storage building that's there that outlived its usefulness. Partial demolition and rebuild of a main building to provide shelter. Replacement of the stage. Installation of potable water access so people can get access a water fountain. Benches and picnic tables. There's one picnic table in the entire park. Shade shelters to enable moms to get out of the sun. So what we did that day was we added some paint and we tidied up the park, but we didn't fix the problems. So I look at this $129,000 that we have in the bank, and it's my belief that we should provide $100,000 of that in support of the immediate restoration of the Meadowfields playground, that we should correspond with Modi to advise of our commitment, and that we should allow access to the remaining funds to be used at the discretion of the Parks Department and Public Works to remedy the issues at South End Playground. So I don't believe it's an outrageous amount to ask for. We're talking about a recreation facility that's very much needed in this community. And I really hope that we can proceed. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Go ahead, Councillor Lesser.
I knew there was a fund that existed, but I don't know the history of like where that money comes from, or like does the money get replenished, or is it a one-time? Was it a one-time deal? I guess.
So the Parks and Open Space Reserve is generated through property development, essentially, through subdivision. So if you create additional lots, you have a large lot and you divide into smaller lots, or divide one lot into two lots, you're required to pay to the town 5% of the value of the new lots created as a park and open space levy or tax. And that exists in most municipalities. Some municipalities, and the town used to have this as an option, some municipalities will take the 5% in land. So if you can imagine a subdivision that has 30 or 40 units in it, maybe 5% of the land mass to be set aside for a playground or a quiet open space kind of makes sense. In the town of Yarmouth, we have historically taken cash, and we've put it in this reserve. So that's the source of the Parks and Open Space Reserve.
Okay. Any more questions? What are we thinking? First of all, can we commit that without Jerry?
Yes, you can. You don't need Jerry here to be able to make that kind of commitment. The money is in the Parks and Open Space Reserve, and council can make a grant. As far as the portion or I know the motion is about the Meadowfields. So, but there was discussion about the South Main Street playground. The way you would deal with that is that you, in your next budget cycle, you would allocate transfer from reserve as part of one of the budget items, transfer from reserve to the parks budget for that playground.
Okay, go ahead.
Thank you, Your Worship. I don't disagree that the money sitting there isn't helping anybody, and it should be designated. And I think that the playground is a great idea. I really do. The only thing that holds me back a little bit is there's no way we can give you all of the funds, right? I mean, we can. That's a significant number that we can give, but is there a plan beyond our contribution? I know that you're going to ask, and you already mentioned that you're going to ask the other municipality to maybe come and use some of that. And at the time of the presentation, there was talk about this, using this as much as not just for the school itself, but as a public playground. But I do want to know that the rest of it can come up as well. So if you can address that, I'd appreciate it.
I am aware that there is a fundraising campaign underway. In fact, Linda Gallagher, who spearheaded the Splash Park, is part of that campaign along with David Solos, and they have a fundraising plan. As I say, I guess my concern is that they're not going to get there through bake sales, and leaving them with a $100,000 commitment from the community, I think, and if in fact the municipality of the District of Yarmouth matches the contribution. I know that in conversation with the deputy warden, he was prepared to make a similar pitch to his council, and I would be hopeful that they would be encouraged by our leadership.
Okay, thank you.
And I do realize that it's a huge amount of money, and I'll go back to it. Money sitting in the bank when there's an urgent need in the community for a playground, it doesn't make sense to me. So, thank you.
Go ahead.
Thank you, Your Worship. So I just want to be clear, this is a project that is outside of the town boundary.
It is.
Okay, so we're talking about a major infrastructure project that is going to be located in the municipality of Yarmouth. Is that right?
That's exactly
Yeah.
it.
Why is not the municipality of Yarmouth taking the lead on this project? At the very least, it seems to me that we should be tying our contribution to matching funds from the municipality. It's their land. It's their, you know, it's, I understand the value of the project, but I can't help but think about a group of 6 little girls that I ran into when I was campaigning last year on Church Street. And they were on a trampoline in a field, and they wanted to know what I was doing walking around the neighborhood. So we stopped to chat with them. And the first thing they said to me was, can you do something about the playgrounds? Can you do something about the playgrounds? And can you ask us? Can you consult with us? Because we know what we'd like to have. And I keep thinking about those little girls who were in a field on a trampoline. I'm just thinking about, is $100,000 of 127,000? Is that what we have
29.
available to us? Is that the best use of that money? I'm not sure. It feels to me like, I guess you're trying to jumpstart a project, and I understand that, but this is a school. This is a provincial school. And I think provincial schools have some responsibility for providing for the recreational needs of their students. And if we let them off the hook by coming in and just basically, funding the project, I don't know what kind of a precedent that sets. And I'm going to have to think about this, I think, and digest it. I'm not ready to vote yes, I don't think today. I really have to think about it. Obviously, it's going to come back to council in 2 weeks, and I will definitely have an opportunity to think about it, but it's a lot of money. It's a lot of money. Thank you.
Go ahead.
When we had, Yarmouth Central just went through a project very similar, and I guess I don't know the history there, but have we contributed to other playgrounds in the past, and would it be to this amount? I'm obviously in favor of playgrounds, and I know there's some other Hebron Smurf graduates in the room, and it's that's some of my best memories of elementary school, but I want to make sure that Yarmouth Central, which is another school that's located in town, would have had the same type of support.
Your Worship, just I'll jump the queue here for a second. So Councillor Dares had asked me the question, and Lindsay looked back, and what we found was $28,000 the town had committed to the YES, Yarmouth Elementary School playground, when that school was opening and developing their playground. So it's, and years ago, council contributed to significantly to the build out of the recreation activity opportunities at Central School when that school got its basketball courts and so on. So it isn't unprecedented for council to make a contribution to a school playground.
Good. Thank you. Go ahead.
Thank you. Just to quickly address Councillor Hatfield's concerns. Number one, I realize that this is a structure that's outside of the town boundaries, barely, but it is outside the town boundaries. However, I think when you compare that, when you consider that the municipality of Argyle and the municipality of Yarmouth have significantly invested in recreation facilities within town boundaries, then it's not much of an argument to, I think it deflates the argument a little bit. I will say as well that, and I appreciate your story about the young women that wanted to, the young girls that wanted to be involved. And one of the things that intrigued me about this with Lori McClay is that she did involve the youth in the design of the playground. She asked them what they wanted, what they needed, and they built that into the design. So she's, I think it's a very dynamic thing. I think, I see people there on the weekends that aren't attending the school, but it also, as I say, it serves, a large portion of the town. Students go to that school as well. So, and I just hate to see that, they lost a school year last year with chains around the playground equipment. They're going to lose that facility again this year through the school year. The recreation department wasn't able to use it during the summer. And I think it's a shame that facility is sitting there ready to be redeveloped with a really comprehensive plan, and it just needs the investment. And as I say, I don't think they can wait. I don't think they should have to wait years for that investment to come to fruition.
So what about, don't turn your light off. So what about the point around us following Modi, I guess? Because it is and we know what would happen backwards. It wouldn't.
I realize.
Sorry. I got lights.
Whether or not it would be prudent to engage Modi and say, okay, if you guys do it, we'll do it. It almost seemed a little bit like a strong arm technique to me. We won't do it unless you do it. And so I thought, why don't we show true leadership here and say, we're prepared to invest in this. We were very hopeful and we encourage, and for the same reasons that we're considering it, that they would consider it. So in this case, I would rather, it's just my preference, I'd rather show the leadership than make it conditional.
Good, thank you.
Thank you.
Go ahead.
I was just wondering if you could refresh my memory when it comes to the presentation. Is there a plan to phase in? Like, if we gave $100,000, for example, would they use that immediately, or are they waiting for the number before they start building?
So I think that they would probably start the preparation immediately. There's a lot of prep work to be done because the ground cover itself has to be replaced in order to allow accessibility. So I think they could begin some of that immediately, but they can't start with the $10,000 that they have in the bank.
All right.
Go ahead, Councillor Lesser.
Councillor Bell, I mentioned about the Department of Education funding playgrounds, which I think everybody would think would be a logical thing to do, but they've never done it. It's frustrating because there's schools in the province that were built with gyms that didn't have bleachers because bleachers aren't considered to be instructional. So schools have had to fundraise for bleachers in gyms. So although it seems wrong that they wouldn't, for whatever reason, they haven't done it, and they're not going to do it. But interesting enough, Maple Grove, I noticed last year, put in some playground equipment in the front, and it was, I guess, co-sponsored by the regional center, in the sense that they did the construction of, like, they went there and did the prep work, which would be, so I guess it would still be funds within the regional center that helped do some of the prep work. And I'm assuming the same thing would happen if they asked like our trades department. I'm sure they would help do some of that. But as far as funding from the province, it hasn't happened since I've been involved in education that I know of. So.
Okay. So I don't know what we're thinking. I mean, we can vote, we can throw out a different number, we can, what do you want to do?
There is a motion on the floor, is there not?
Yep, there is. Call for the motion, I'll vote. Doesn't mean we can't. Jeff, if we vote yes, it goes ahead. If we vote no, can we come back with another motion with a different number if it's, because that's a different motion?
So you have a motion on the floor, you have to deal with that motion.
Yeah, definitely.
There's no motion to amend it, so
Yep.
the motion stands. Somebody calls for the question, you call the question.
Right on.
If that motion is defeated, there's no reason somebody couldn't introduce a different motion. If nobody introduces a different motion, you move on to the next item of business.
Gotcha. Okay. So are we ready to vote? I can't, like, someone's going to have to call a question. Go ahead.
If anyone knows me when it comes to our youth and support, that's kind of where I come from and where I stand. I guess the only other thing, it's just the large number, $100,000, with no other for sure commitment from other people. I like the idea of being leaders. I don't like talking about what other councils should or shouldn't do. I respect our friends in Hebron and how they choose to do their business is up to them. But I mean, of course, being partners on things is a great thing, and that's how we move things forward. But I'm almost wondering if we're a little bit too out front here. I am comfortable supporting financially. I would like to see a few more pieces into place myself. I have this kind of premature feeling, I guess. If we knew kind of where other people stood or where things were, it'd be a little more settled. And, you know, if it was 10,000, it might be a little different, but 100,000 is a big number. It is for our kids. They very much deserve it. There's no convincing that needs to be had here. My point of view outside of the fact is I do feel we're a little bit out ahead of this, you know, given location where it is, as has been mentioned, and a few other things that I guess in my idea, I wouldn't be prepared to vote on to support that 100% just yet, but we're getting there, I believe. I think it was a great presentation. I've worked with the schools in different manners. Meadowfield is a great school. I mean, no doubt the community uses that through the roof, the day camps, everything that's been brought up, but I'm not quite sure if I'm ready to support $100,000 yet myself. But I think maybe in, you know, a month's time, see where some other people are at, see kind of how that goes and move from there. I guess that's my 2 cents.
Yeah. I think that's where I am too. And with the things that you were saying, Councillor Bell, because I supported 1,000% as far as the kids. I love the leadership aspect. I don't like that we would give our school right up the street, you know, under 30,000 and then go with that number there. Yeah, definitely.
Just wondering if that's appropriate or not. With the permission of the seconder, would it be appropriate to withdraw the motion? That would be.
Yeah. You seconded it. You don't have to do that.
That would be my preference. Thank you.
Go ahead.
Could we defer it? I think some of us would like to have time to think about it, and others would like to find out more information. There are other revenue streams. I know they're not easy, but there are other revenue streams that could be pursued as well. It seems like a lot all of a sudden. And so I'd be happy to, you know, I don't know if that requires a motion if he's going to withdraw it, but I'd be happy to readdress this at our next committee of the whole and give us a month to kind of look into, you know, what the plan, we know what the plan is, but what the plan as far as getting funds, you know, are compatriots ready to step up? Is there a plan to do grants, or is there a plan to reach out for funding from local industry? You know, there's other things that can be done. It's just that the number's big, and to me, I don't know if intimidating is the right word, but it's a lot of money that could do a lot of good. And we want to make sure we spend it right. And I'm more than happy to put the money to it, as long as if there was a guarantee right now that the rest of it was taken care of and this 100 would bring us over the edge, I wouldn't think twice about it. But I'm thinking twice about it now because of the aspect of us kind of jumping ahead of everything.
Yeah, I don't even think I care where it is. honestly. I mean, we say
No, that makes no difference to me.
I don't care where it is. I just care that you give under 30 to one, and then you give 100 to another. It's really hard. It's really hard. It's a tough one. But we all get it. So your choice. You can-
Well, if the motion can be deferred, that's fine.
Yeah. And then, okay, you okay with that? Motion to defer? Go ahead.
Table it until the next committee of the whole.
Table it to the next committee of the whole? All right, so we don't have to vote or anything?
You need a motion and a seconder on that.
Oh,
I think you
okay.
need to vote to table, I think you need to vote to table it. I'm no
Okay.
parliamentarian.
Second, okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, contrary, motion carried. And then the deal should really be, because I think we all get it and we can all be excited about it, I think there's just a lot of questions, right?
So on that note, if
Yeah.
any questions that anyone has,
Yeah.
I will certainly endeavor to find your answers for
Yeah.
you.
Yeah.
I can contact the organizing committee.
Yeah.
And I'll also be speaking with the deputy warden and
Okay.
municipality as well. So any
Perfect.
questions you have, please direct them to me and I'll get the answers for you. Thank you.
Okay. So if you direct the questions, copy all the council in and Jeff
Yes.
and Lynn's, and then we won't be asking the same questions? All right, that's fair, that's good.
Thank you for your time and your
that-
indulgence.
We needed that, thank you. Okay, correspondence, so the fetal alcohol spectrum awareness month in September, was that a flag, Lindsay? No. Okay, perfect. All right. There's no additions. Do we have anything in camera, CAO? Okay. Oh, I'm sorry, didn't even have to yell.
I did. I just had a question in regards to the playground and the funding for you, Jeff. How fast does that fund build and how long has it been that has it taken us to get to that point, and in a year, what would we be looking at to replenish if we use funds from that?
Yeah, I kind of, as you were talking, I was expecting that question, and I tried to glean that from our financial statements. I couldn't find it, so I don't have the answer for you, but I can get that for you.
Good? Okay. So a motion to go in camera? Okay. Councillor Lesser and Councillor